Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watch Want and thanks for logging on. Well, it's Wednesday and so we come to you from Collector Corner. I'm here with Nico Maltonato. Nico, how's it going?
Good, how you doing?
Nico's one of our lead watch buyers and he's here to share his Watch You Want fantasy collection with you and myself as well. But before we launch in, I do want to admit that this particular Collector Corner is coming to you from a little bit of a recording. We're actually doing a company-wide bowling tournament tonight, and this is one of the top places to work in South Florida. Send your resumes. So we're going to be out at the bowling alley tonight drinking beer, and I think, what else are we doing?
I think we might bowl, but mostly beer and pizza is really where I think we're going tonight.
Rolling like a combined 300 between the 30 of us.
Well,
so, okay, Nico's good.
Well, there's a few of us, but we'll be competitive. We'll post scores online.
Okay, yeah, updates to follow. I want to launch in by acknowledging one of our viewers, Don Rogan, who had actually forwarded a question to me regarding the relationship between Breitling and Sakura, and I'm going to open with that and we're going to jump to our dream collections in just a second. Breitling and Sakura, okay, so when Ernest Snyder purchased Breitling from Willie Breitling in 1978 after the old company went bankrupt, Ernest Snyder was a microelectronics engineer, licensed pilot, and watch industry executive who had built up Sakura, his own watch manufacturer brand during the 1960s and 70s. I say manufacturer slash brand because they were more of a branding exercise than a true manufacturer, often using a Baumgartner like BFG 866 movements in jump hour watches during the 70s. But they were smart enough to build watches that remained profitable and attractive and novel well into the quartz era, and there was no hesitation to embrace quartz within Sakura. So Snyder used proceeds from that original brand to fund his purchase of Breitling, and in about 1984-85 he folded the Sakura brand into Breitling after resurrecting the Breitling name following the bankruptcy of the original Breitling family-owned company. So Sakura was ultimately subsumed into Breitling as Ernest Snyder and later his son Theodore saw Breitling as the more viable brand name, better known with a better heritage for the long term and the then dawning luxury watch era. So Nico, tell us a little bit about your Dream 4. What we did was we took 4 watches from the Watch You Want inventory and we assembled our dream collection from what we had.
Yeah, I mean, I took a perspective of where I was when I was starting my collection. And so to get into it from the sense of, here's a watch where we can start, and this is the Omega Seamaster. And this watch right now, here we go, get it in front of the camera there. Okay. This is a watch that's quite simple. It's listed on our site right now for just right around $2,000. And extreme comfort and wearability, very durable, as me and Tim have talked about before. And it's just one of those pieces that can get you into a great name for a low price. And it's a piece that's timeless and that will never go out of style. So I started there to make sure that everybody knew that accessibility within the watch industry is just so important, and there's so many things out there to where you can get into this.
Yeah, and I also want to just acknowledge that that is the Bond style Seamaster. That particular choice, that's the mid-size, isn't it?
Correct.
Okay. Just for comparison's sake, I actually chose a Seamaster from the same generation as part of my dream collection. Basically, we took 4 watches from Watch You Want's inventory that we would love to pluck to start a 4-watch collection, and I swore off JLC because you already know the answer there. So outside of JLC, I jumped on the opportunity to have a pre-coaxial Seamaster in my collection, so I'm actually looking at the 2231 reference in titanium with iridescent blue dial. This is the 41.5, what you see here is the 36. So that's the difference, even though the styles are similar case and bracelet wise, that's the difference in size between those two. Tell us a little bit about the hour vision you got there.
Yeah, so the next piece that we have here is the Omega DeVille. And so what we get into here is a piece that's going to be a little bit larger, going to have a little bit more of a bold dial with those two-tone on colors, and also you're getting into your first exposed case back. Again, another watch that we can get into at a very reasonable rate. And Omega, to me, has one of the most interesting exposed case backs that's out there. Really interesting to look at, very, very intriguing to the eye. And this is a piece that, again, you can get into right around the high $3,000 mark. And still staying within the same brand, kind of just getting into a little bit more of a dress piece, as I've expressed throughout our shows, that I very much enjoy.
Yeah, and the nice thing about the Hour Vision, that is the DeVille Hour Vision, it's a historically important watch for Omega. Back in 2007, that helped to launch the Caliber 8500. It was the debut platform. I'm just going to jump back to the macro camera real quick because there's one really neat feature that needs to be stressed anytime you mention the Hour Vision, and I'm going to see if I can get the camera to focus. Because the Hour Vision was one of the first mainstream watches, and there you can see it, to employ sapphire windows in the case. This was the beginning of the sapphire case phenomenon, as well as the launch of Omega's first purpose-built coaxial caliber, not developed from an existing ETA movement. And it's an all-time great, and that's even within the scope of Omega's history back to 1848. So I agree with Nico. Back when I worked in mortgages in New York City in 2007, I would go down to the Tourneau, that was at Penn Station back then, and I'd look at that watch in the case and absolutely drool over it. So, well chosen, if I may say. Now, moving on, after the Omegas, you seem to feel that JLC.
Yeah,
surprise, surprise.
I'm on the same page as Tim when it comes to JLC. I'm an absolute freak, and the Reverso and their Master Control and Master Compressors are some of my favorite timepieces. Now, here you get into something with a little bit more function, and we'll go back to the macro here, and let's see.
Yeah, so you've got a Reserve de Marche.
That's correct.
37 millimeters. And this, I believe, is the Reserve de Marche caliber 828. So it's based on the 889 with a power reserve and a radial date. This watch is 37 millimeters in steel, but in the old days of the Master Controls, back during the 90s and early to mid 2000s, you would get a solid gold medallion in either yellow or rose gold on the back of a steel watch with the individual Master Control certificate number of the watch. A lot of pedigree right there.
That's correct, and what I love is that you get into as you go on through the three watches we looked at in my collection so far. You go increased functionality on each. Now we get into a power reserve, which is one of my favorite functions to see on a watch, especially while winding. I think it's great to see it go back up and be able to notice how your watch is performing. You also have data, and the small seconds on the subdial is absolutely perfect and one of the most classy dials that I've seen in JLC. Absolute favorite.
Yeah, versatile too. With the steel case and the steel deployant, you have a watch that looks perfectly at home, whether you're dressed for formal occasions or just going casual. Like, you could absolutely wear that watch to the bowling alley tonight and no one would say, a little overdressed for the occasion, eh, Nico?
100%, but you could also wear it with a suit and tie and have it look absolutely spectacular.
That's a fact, and because it's nice and thin with that 889 base, easily fits underneath a tight cuff. I've seen, believe me, I've seen guys try to pull off the 45 millimeter dress watch from like Cartier, and you can always tell that guy because he's walking with his sleeve curled up on top of his oversized watch. That's what you want for the black tie occasion. But I will make an exception for one relatively chunky dress watch. And Nico, I think I'm going to let you lead off with that.
So I went in the trend of, as I said, trying to start a collection with the first three pieces. Now I've gotten to the point where I did a little bit of a jump. You're situated, you've gotten a few bonuses over the years that you've saved up, and you go into a real classic within JLC, and that is the Reverso. This is an all gold piece.
Yeah, this is not just a Reverso here. This is, Nico has exceptional taste. This is the rose gold anniversary septantième, a watch that should have come out in 2001 and it was actually delayed till 2002 because JLC needed extra time to perfect the 8-day movement in solid gold. That's an 18-karat rose gold movement. It is entirely hand finished to a standard that was almost unheard of at JLC at the time. Beautiful watch. Incredible power reserve that's advertised at 8 days but will run almost 10 if you let it wind out completely. Many refinements, including the ability to energize the 8-day with only 55 turns of the crown. They made 500 of these.
That's correct.
And let's be honest, it's incredibly hefty, very impressive in the hand.
Absolutely. I mean, even just holding it here, I was looking at the wind. I actually turned it over just now to just check what edition out of 500. Each one of these is engraved in the back with its edition number out of 500, and it just feels incredibly substantial. It's a watch that you're never going to forget that you're wearing. It sits very tall, very high, and you're always going to be weighed down by it, but it's an absolute comfort and class when you're looking at a piece like this.
Yeah, I always say I like for a dress watch to fit underneath the cuff or a sleeve, but I'll be totally honest with you. When you're buckled down to that second button on your formal cuff and that watch doesn't clear it, believe me, I would dispense with the shirt before losing the watch. So let's take a quick look at what I chose, and it's odd because I consider myself a dress watch guy, and like I said, I swore off JLC simply for the purposes of this feature, but 3 of the 4 watches I picked are sports watches.
Correct. I was surprised substantially, actually.
Yeah, and actually 2 of them I picked are divers. So I'm just going to jump in with the watch that I consider to be the starter in this particular collection. Jumping over to my macro now. Now this is the Omega Seamaster Professional 300 meter reference 2231.80.00. This is one of those turn of the century references. Not quite the Bond style. The bezel's different, the hands are different, the dial obviously is dramatically different, but so are the indices. This is a watch that has a tremendous wow factor. The lacquered numerals and indices on the bezel, the iridescence of that blue wave dial. It's not the matte blue that you see on the Pierce Brosnan Bond 300. It's really a reactive and explosive reflective surface. Now this one is in titanium. I owned the Bond, and I still do, the 2531.80. This has a completely different look and feel to it with the combination of the bezel, the dial, and the gray metal titanium. Although it is differentially finished with polish and satin on the bracelet, there's really no comparison with the shiny silver of my steel example, although it does pack the same trigger deployant clasp, which I love, and what was, at the time, one of the absolute best dive extensions in the industry. Still an excellent one. I actually wore that over my winter coat and thick sweaters when I was in New Hampshire from 2002 to 2006. And like I said, it's nice to be a little bit older and be able to have nice things. So I chose the Submariner. This is the 116619. This is the Smurf. This is an important watch. You Rolex guys out there, this is the first and only white gold Submariner. In 2008, when it debuted at Baselworld, it was also the first of the Sub-Cs, the Submariners with the Cerachrome ceramic bezel, and rather than launch with the black seen on the GMT before it in 2005, Omega went for a colorful complement to a beautiful blue lacquer style dial. So it's glossy, it's rich, the bezel matches the dial, and for the first time in Submariner history, you didn't have to worry about that anodized aluminum turning into, like, you know, a battered New York City cab fender. So durability for long wearing, good looks, but it's also incredibly hefty. Here's the thing, it's stealth wealth. It doesn't declare, I have a ton of money. It looks like steel. Now, to some, that's going to be a turnoff. To me, I love the feeling of this thing in the hand.
Yeah, 100%. And you know, as I'm holding it, I'm thinking of clients that I deal with on a daily basis. I've got one of my better clients, Nick, is a huge dive fan and does it with all his summers. And all I'm thinking to myself is I can't wait to show him a piece like this that is going to sit that substantial, be that subtle. And I'm sure he's familiar already, as all Rolex collectors are. The Smurf is timeless. But you know, definitely one of those pieces that a guy with a 7.5, 7 3/4 inch wrist can wear and feel like it's holding with him. You know, it's a very, very classic and very, very hefty watch.
Yeah, I'll also say this. Rolex makes its own gold, and that's a big deal on a white gold watch because Rolex has long subscribed to the notion that white gold should be homogeneous. What Rolex actually uses is something known in the industry as gray gold. It's white gold in appearance, and it is white gold, but it doesn't have the milky yellow beneath rhodium plating that you see on a lot of other watches, and I actually saw on Patek Philippe up until 2007. When you scratch this, and it's a sports watch, you will, what you see underneath is the same color as what's on top, so it never needs to be replated. It's white gold all the way through. It's Rolex's own alloy, just as the Cerachrome is Rolex's own ceramic, and the Chromolite is Rolex's own Superluminova. An awesome watch, historically great. It does feature a beautiful and very substantial milled out white gold clasp. Now what I really like here, and this one is exceptionally crisp, is that it features a sliding extension rather than the simple pullout that Omega features. So you do have a incremental adjustable 20 millimeters, so you can take it in, take it out depending on your level of activity. It's not simply, okay, I'm putting it over my sweater or not. There is an incremental adjustment built in here, and it is very crisp, very impressively built. Nico, I think you and I were arguing over the Bucherer. You give me your take.
I'll never trash a watch brand in any sense of the term, because of the fact that I respect all watches and all ingenuity of watches differently.
Yeah.
You know, and there is a beauty taken to each piece by each collector. As far as Bucherer, I'm just not a fan of the case. I think that they're a little bit clunky, a little bit big, but as a watch brand overall, I will say they have some innovations that I admire.
Yeah, and innovation is the best way to describe this watch. A little quick background on Bucherer. Mostly a retailer until 2001. They have released watches under their marquee in the past, and in fact they were part of the original Beta 21 conglomerate, the sort of cooperative of companies that were funding the Swiss CEH. But they didn't become Karl F. Bucherer in the name of the founder until 2001, when they really started to emphasize themselves as a watch brand. Now in 2007 they bought a company called THA, which I believe was Technique Horlogère Appliquée. It was actually founded by F.P. Journe and Vianney Halter, among others, so it had incredible high horology pedigree. That company was merged into Bucherer and became their movement factory, and it helped to develop for the next year's Basel World the movement in this watch. This is the CFB A1000, and what I want to call attention to is that this 33 jewel automatic winding movement is one of the very few peripheral automatic rotors you will ever see. It is a peripheral automatic, like the Vacheron Constantin Harmony Grand Complication or the Patek Philippe Calibre 350 in its iterations. The rotor moves around the outside of the movement as it winds in both directions. It doesn't sit and obscure the view of the movement. So their own movement, yes, impressive, but a completely alien winding system rarely seen in the industry at any price. Now, because of that, this stainless steel watch, even on a strap, originally retailed for $15,900. And when I met with Bucherer CEO Sasha Mori at Basel World this year, he said that the launch of this year's A2000 caliber was kind of a Manhattan project, because they were trying to find a way to contain the costs of the original A1000, which frankly may have actually been a losing battle for them from a profit standpoint. You're getting a tremendous amount of technology from a manufacturing movement with an interesting winding system, a 55-hour power reserve, so expensive even Bucherer was a little bit afraid of selling it. So to get that pre-owned, I think is a great value. Can we both agree on the good planet?
Absolutely. Huge fan of the watch. I think that it's one of the best dive watches that I can see on the market right now. Extreme comfort, really awesome dial, very bold. Love the orange and blue. Contrast is fantastic, and the movement on it is another favorite of mine from Omega.
Yeah, this is another Omega 8500 series movement. We saw the original in Nico's favorite, the Hour Vision, but this is actually the 85, or is it the 8605? 8605. The 8605 is a GMT based on the 8500. The key distinction here is that it has an independent second time zone. Now it retains the quick set hour hand such that you advance the date by spinning the hour hand around the dial, but it's nice because if you are traveling, you can set the hour ahead or back, and I'll also mention you can do the same thing with the DeVille Hour Vision, but you can actually set the hour hand independently of the seconds, of the minutes, without stopping the balance and affecting the precision of the movement. Now, the other cool thing about this watch is it is for a good cause. It was released at Basel World 2013, and it has a unique case size, 43.5, that's betwixt and between the largest of the Planet Oceans and the 42mm entry-level size. So it's got a nice case size. At 43.5, I can wear it on my 16-centimeter wrist without feeling like it's overpowering me, and it has a unique combination of blues, silvers, and orange. It could be the ultimate watch if you're a fan of the Chicago Bears or the Mets. But even if you're not, it's a beautiful piece with Omega's exclusive coaxial caliber inside, twin mainspring barrels, 60-hour power reserve, and possibly the most useful of complications with the second time zone.
I will say, anything that we have here tonight would be a fantastic way to start a collection. We've both kind of gone up the hill as far as pricing and retails and functionalities. Anybody out there that's watching these videos to try and get an education on where they should go, this is a great lead-in. But just think, wherever you're comfortable yourself, whether it's dress or dive.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that across the board, all of these watches are going to outlive us. Even the basic Seamasters, this little iridescent thing, which was the coolest watch at Tourneau in the Walt Whitman Mall when I was in high school, will still be alive and dazzling high schoolers long after I am, basically pushing up daisies. Long after I have ticked and talked my last. So every single one of these watches, even if it's just the anchor that starts your collection, is going to be with you till your last watch. They're all of that quality. Nico, do you want to close with any thoughts about how to start a collection?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's very personal. I think that you need somebody dedicated who knows what they're doing to help you, and who really is trying to help you. And if you can get with someone who can discuss your opinions, what you're going to wear the watch for, how often you're going to wear the watch, what durability you need, whether it's an executive piece or it's a piece that you're going to dive with, like my client I talked about earlier. Watches are a very personal thing, and make sure that they fit your personality.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of times, you're talking to someone who is worth your while when he'll steer you away from a watch when you tell him what you're interested in.
Of course.
And a watch that you suggest actually gets shot down, even if it's the more expensive option.
Mm-hmm.
Go for someone who is willing to tell you no. And I think that's when you found someone you can work with to help guide you through the process of creating a collection. As ever, we will be back on Friday with This Week in Watches, but every single show I'm willing to throw away my talking points. If you have live questions, send them to me, tim@watchyouwant.com. I'll be more than happy to field those questions on our next live show. And because this show is taped, I couldn't participate in the chat box on YouTube, but we'll be up and running with a live broadcast Friday. So once again, I'm always ready to go off script. Save your questions, write them down, email them to me, or chat them live on Friday. This has been Watch You Want Inc. This has been Collector's Corner. I'm Tim, and thanks for logging on.